Welcome to Criminal Mindset, where the shadows of unsolved cases come to life. I'm Sergeant Kane, a retired investigator with decades of experience unraveling the mysteries of human nature. Tonight, I'm taking you into the darkest corners of crime. If you're drawn to the dark and fascinated by the unexplained, you're in the right place. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a story. Tonight, I will be sharing one of the cases that disturbed me more than any others. There's a weight that comes with knowing someone got away with murder, especially when you're sure you know exactly who did it. It eats at you, gnaws at your conscience, and lingers in the back of your mind, whispering, what if they do it again? I worked a lot of cases during my time as an investigator. Most of them followed a pattern, a clear motive, evidence that pointed in one direction, and a resolution that brought closure to the victims' families. But not this one. The Bradford family murders weren't just another case. They were the kind of nightmare that sticks with you for the rest of your life. It was early spring, 2003. A quiet little town in Indiana. The Bradfords were the picture-perfect family. Mark Bradford, a schoolteacher. His wife Susan, a nurse at the local hospital. They had 2 kids, Emily, 12, and Jacob, 8. They were the kind of people everyone in town knew and liked. The kind of family that had no enemies, or so it seemed. The call came in just before dawn on April 14th. A neighbor had noticed the Bradford's front door wide open and thought it was strange. When he went to check, he saw the blood. He didn't go inside. He just ran back to his house and called 911. I was one of the first on the scene. I've seen some grisly things in my career, but nothing prepares you for walking into a house where an entire family has been slaughtered. Mark was in the hallway, just a few feet from the front door. He'd been shot twice in the chest, and his body was sprawled out like he'd been trying to reach the door. Susan was in the kitchen. She'd been stabbed multiple times, and the knife was still there, buried to the hilt in her chest. We found Emily and Jacob upstairs. Emily was in her bedroom, curled up on the bed like she'd tried to hide. She'd been strangled. Jacob was in the bathroom, and his injuries were the worst of all. The killer had taken their time with him. I won't go into detail. It's not something anyone should have to imagine, but it was clear the person who did this enjoyed it. The scene was chaotic blood, overturned furniture, signs of a struggle. But there were also things that didn't make sense. There was no sign of forced entry. No valuables were taken. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong. Whoever did this came to that house with one goal in mind: to kill. We started canvassing the neighborhood, interviewing everyone who lived nearby. Most people said the same thing. They didn't hear or see anything unusual that night. But one neighbor mentioned something that caught my attention. She said she'd seen a car parked down the street around midnight, an old sedan with its lights off. She didn't recognize it, but she thought it was strange enough to mention. We followed that lead as far as we could, but it didn't get us anywhere. No one else had seen the car, and there were no security cameras in the area back then. Then we started looking into the Bradfords' lives, trying to find anyone who might have had a reason to hurt them. But they were clean. No financial troubles, no marital issues, no shady dealings. The only thing that stood out was a restraining order Susan had filed against a former patient 6 months earlier. His name was Danny Fields. Danny had a history of mental health issues and violent behavior. He'd been in and out of psychiatric care for years. Susan had treated him during a short stay at the hospital, and according to her co-workers, he became obsessed with her. He'd show up at the hospital, send her letters, even call the house. The restraining order seemed to keep him away until now. We brought Danny in for questioning, and he was off. He didn't deny knowing Susan, but he insisted he hadn't been near the Bradfords' house the night they were killed. He claimed he'd been at his apartment, alone, watching TV. His alibi was weak, and his history made him a prime suspect. But there was no physical evidence linking him to the scene. No fingerprints, no DNA, nothing. We searched his apartment, his car, even his trash, but we couldn't find anything tying him to the murders. I knew in my gut he was the one. The way he talked about Susan, the way he couldn't look me in the eye when I asked about the kids, it all pointed to him. But a gut feeling isn't enough to convict someone. As the weeks turned into months, the case stalled. We couldn't find any new leads, and without solid evidence, we couldn't make an arrest. The town was on edge, people locking their doors and looking over their shoulders. And then Danny disappeared. His landlord said he packed up and left in the middle of the night. No forwarding address, no goodbye. It was like he vanished into thin air. We kept looking for him, but he stayed off the radar. Eventually, the case went cold. The Bradford's deaths became a cautionary tale in our town. The kind of story parents tell their kids to keep them from talking to strangers. I retired in 2014, but I never stopped thinking about that case. Danny Fields is still out there, somewhere. And if he killed once, I have no doubt he'd do it again. That's what haunts me the most. Not just the fact that he got away, but the knowledge that he might still be out there, watching, waiting for his next victim. Some nights I lie awake, replaying the details in my mind, wondering if I missed something. A clue, a connection, anything that could have stopped him. But the truth is, I'll probably never know. The Bradford family deserved justice, and I failed to give it to them. That's a weight I'll carry for the rest of my life. If there's one thing I've learned from this case, it's that evil doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes, it's the man sitting across the table, looking you in the eye, swearing he didn't do it. And sometimes, it's the man who walks away, free to kill again. Thank you for joining me as we revisited another chilling case from my career. If you found this story intriguing, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss another investigation. Until next time, stay safe and, remember, the truth is always out there waiting to be uncovered.